So we've been practicing and studying the Eightfold Path, and primarily, mostly using this wonderful edition, Women Zen Teachers, edited by Jikyo Cheryl Wolfer. I was really happy to hear that another Sangha found out that we were doing this, and found out somehow through the grapevine that this is a really wonderful, lovely book of essays, and so they started doing it and got really excited and happy about it. I'm just thoroughly enjoying teaching with the teachings of women teachers and the way that they present. So this is the time of year where traditionally Buddhist Sanghas honor Maha Prajapati, who is the first original ancestor. And I was pleased and not surprised at how easily her story overlaps with what we are, where we find ourselves today, which is on Right Effort. This one's called Learning to Fly by Teijo Munich, who I don't know, but I like her writings a lot. I thought I would begin maybe it was last week or at the sitting, in a talk I gave the other night, last night. I used the teaching from the Hidden Lamp, and this is a little bit different. This is from the introduction for the Going Forth of Maha Prajapati. I thought I should have brought a whole stack of wonderful books. Wendy Darling, I think that's what her name is done some wonderful research on Maha Prajapati and other ancient women teachers. And anyway, there's wonderful resources to be found. Maha Prajapati Gautama, the first Buddhist nun, was the first woman to request the ordination of women in Buddhism, which she did from Gautama Buddha directly. Maha Prajapati was both the Buddha's maternal aunt and adoptive mother, raising him after her sister Maya, the Buddha's mother, died. So I want to note grief here, because you'll see when we go to the chapter in Eightfold Path, she talks about grief and the interconnection between grief and a right effort and practice. I think it's undernoted that Buddha's mother died, Dogen's mother died, Maha Prajapati's sister died. My guess is that if you look at many spiritual teachers, or many of us who came to the path, there is some loss or some grief, maybe early on, where the world as we thought we knew it or was being presented to us was turned upside down. Maha Prajapati was both the Buddha's maternal aunt and adoptive mother, raising him after her sister Maya, the Buddha's mother, died. So here's, I'll just read you this little section. Now when the Blessed One, Shakyamuni Buddha, had stayed at Kapilavatthu as long as he chose, he set out to wander by stages to Vesali. And when he eventually arrived there, he went to live in the hall with the pointed roof in the great wood. And meanwhile, Maha Prajapati Gautama had cut her hair off and put on the yellow cloth, the ordination robes. With a number of Shakya women of a tribe, she was the head of she was the woman in a very powerful tribe and was revered and respected that way, the Shakyamuni tribe. She set out for Vesali, and on arrival there she went to the hall, with a pointed roof in the great wood, and there she stood outside the porch. Her feet were swollen, her limbs covered with dust, and she was sad and unhappy with tears on her face and sobbing. Use your imagination. As she stood thus, the Venerable Ananda saw her. Ananda was always kind of softy. He's never the smartest, but he's the one who He was, after the Buddha died, he was the one who wasn't enlightened. Everybody, I mean, the story is, everybody got enlightened and poor Ananda, but I think poor Ananda was so busy taking care of everybody else and memorizing all of the Buddha's words, and Ananda is, I like Ananda. As she stood thus, the Venerable Ananda saw her, and he asked her, Gautama, why are you standing outside the porch like this? Lord Ananda, it is because the Blessed One does not allow the going forth for women in the law and discipline declared by the Perfect One. He would not let women be ordained. Ananda replied. Then Gautama, wait here till I ask the Blessed One about this. The Venerable Ananda went to the Blessed One and told him what had happened, and he said, Lord, it would be good if women might obtain the going forth from the house life into homelessness in the law and discipline declared by the Perfect One, to be able to join the order, to be able to leave home, to be able to take vows. Enough, Ananda, replied the Blessed One. I'm appreciating that the Blessed One was a product of his time, like we all are. Do not ask for the going forth from the house life into homelessness for women in the law and discipline declared by the Perfect One. And Ananda asked a second and a third time, and he was refused. And then he thought, the Blessed One does not allow it, but suppose I ask the Blessed One in another way. He used skillful means. You could keep trying to bash at the door, but maybe there's another way to do this. Maybe it's right effort. Then Ananda asked, Lord, are women capable, after going forth from the house life into homelessness and the law and discipline declared by the Perfect One, of realizing the fruit of stream entry or once returner or non-returner or arhatship? In other words, are they capable of awakening? Have you seen it? What are you seeing? If you look with your own eyes, what do you actually see and experience? And the Buddha said, well, yes, they are, Ananda. And then if that is so, Lord, then since the Mahapajapati Gautama has been exceedingly helpful to the Blessed One, when as his mother's sister she was his nurse, his foster mother, his giver of milk, she suckled the Blessed One when his own mother died. Since that is so, Lord, would it be good if women could obtain the going forth? Ananda, if Mahapajapati Gautama accepts a certain number of additional precepts, then that will count her as full admission. And when the Venerable Ananda had learned these additional precepts from the Blessed One, he went to Mahapajapati Gautama and told her what the Blessed One had said, and she replied, maybe right effort, maybe skillful means. Maybe you take what you can get in any given moment. She said, Lord Ananda, suppose a woman or a man, youthful, full of ornaments, with head wash, had received a garland of lotuses or jasmine or roses, she would accept it with both hands and place it on her head. So too do I accept these additional precepts, not to be transgressed as long as life lasts. So the Venerable Ananda returned to the Blessed One and told him, Lord Mahapajapati has accepted the additional precepts, and she is now fully admitted. Not an easy story. And there's some scholarship that says it isn't true, but who knows? We know through our own lives and our own time. Things are complicated. So let me bring forward a little bit about right effort as we hold this question. Grief. Mahapajapati, the grief she lost her sister, must have been incredible grief when the Blessed One, who she had suckled at her breast, said no. Not once, but twice, but 3 times. And then when he finally said yes, there were some conditions put on it. So I like calling this grief, And again, I think what was she feeling in her heart and her body, and how do we live with this grief? What is grief and how does it relate to right effort? What is this life where you don't get what you want all the time? Or maybe you get a little of what you want, or it's not what you thought you wanted, or you lose someone dear, or something that you thought was dear. People die. Here's a wonderful quote from Katagiri Roshi. Told the story, who was her teacher, that when Shizuki Roshi was dying, and one of his students asked him for some Zen wisdom, his response was, I don't want to die. He didn't say some fancy Zen thing. He said really honestly, I don't want to die. He wasn't done. The same way Mahapajapati wasn't done. She wanted to be ordained, and if this was the gateway, that's where she stood. Transitions. Movement. Asking for what we want in life is difficult. Even moving into what we know to be a better situation is often difficult because we never really know for sure what it will be like. We know our current situation, and yet because of impermanence, we really can't hold on to anything. In every moment, everything in life is changing, though that change may be imperceptible. This is reality. How do we stand on that ground? And what is right effort and what is skillful action? Dogen says, the fascicle Shukkei Tokudo, there are 6 billion, which is actually about ordination, taking ordination vows. Shukkei Tokudo is taking priest vows. There are 6,400,099,980 moments in a day and night, and the 5 skandhas, we humans, are born and perish. And we humans are born and perish at each moment, but we don't notice it. If you try to break this statement down to understand what it means, i.e., how many moments in an hour, how many moments in a minute, it boggles the mind. If Dogen is correct, then there are about 250 million moments in an hour and about 4 million moments in a minute, both numbers a little hard to wrap one's head around. Dogen's point is that our minds cannot possibly keep up with such fast-changing reality, yet we are part of that constant movement. So how do we make decisions? How do we know? How do we find our ground? I think, she says, that right effort is very connected with death. Our fear of it and our willingness to face it squarely when the opportunity arises, and we have many opportunities. I remember when I decided to ask to be ordained, it was because I knew that I wanted to be ordained before I died. It was really clear to me. Don't ask me why. Just who knows? But then I thought, I could die tomorrow. I could die in 5 minutes. I thought, I think there's information here for me. Pay attention. Death, a loss, or something or someone that has meaning for us, it gives us a feeling of connection. And when we encounter death of any kind, we have the chance to ignore it or to take a step towards it. Shakyamuni had a choice. Mahapajapati had a choice to face it directly. Ignoring something doesn't change its reality, it just drives fear deeper. I could well imagine that Shakyamuni Buddha was already in a fair amount of trouble because he was going against the cultural mores of his time. Good sons were leaving, not taking care of their families. Saying that women could leave? Who knows what he was aware of in the causes and conditions of his time and where his decision, if it's true, came from. But Mahapajapati had her own true heart and fearlessness because she knew what her heart was set on. Facing our fears is the essence of right effort. And how do we practice that? The Buddha said, "Monks, if you make diligent effort, nothing is too difficult. That's why you should do so. It is like a thread of water piercing through a rock by constantly dripping. If your mind continues to slacken, it is like taking a break from hitting stones before they spark. You can't get fire that way. What I am speaking of is diligent effort. Facing your fears, putting your feet on the earth, listening to your own deepest heart." The Buddha doesn't say what we should do. He simply points to the value of putting one foot in front of the other. Whatever we do, if we stick with it, we will learn something about what we are doing through the process of doing it. But it isn't a slam dunk. Anything we want to do or learn takes time and patience. Enthusiasm or zeal supports diligence. Even in those moments when we feel our efforts are not successful. Can you imagine Mahapajapati setting out with 500 women who had left home and shaved their heads and put on robes without permission to do it, and walked hundreds of miles, one step at a time? We continue by keeping our deep intention alive in our awareness. Results may not be what we expected, yet we continue because we understand the importance of our vision or our intention. No sense of right or wrong, just stepping into the unknown with a clear intention. One step after another, after another. In an absolute sense, all effort is right effort, because the origin of right effort is present in every one of us, whether we recognize it or not. Right effort in the context of timelessness is effort that supports complete and perfect harmony and balances all forms of life that everything innately seeks. If we act in ways that create disharmony, it takes more energy to restore balance. Do you ever notice that? With awareness, we can learn to act in ways that are in harmony with how things are in each moment. If we don't understand that life moves towards harmony and balance, we might act in ways that create disharmony. So there's a kind of faith in this, that everything moves towards harmony and balance. Someone once pointed out, we didn't do kinhin today, is that when you raise your foot, everything goes off balance. There's an act of faith in raising a foot and that the earth will be there to catch you. Over and over. To experience freedom through effort, we must step into each moment fearlessly and respond to what is needed in that moment. And sometimes this means charging forward. Sometimes it requires holding back. Sometimes it means to simply put one foot in front of the other. One might argue that acting with the intention to create disharmony might be seen as wrong effort. One might say Mahapajapati was creating disharmony. What was she thinking? I would argue that rather than intending disharmony, we humans inadvertently bring it about by our self-centeredness, not in this case, by exclusively focusing on what I need, what I want, what will make me feel good. When we think only of our own wishes, we are inclined to do whatever is necessary to make something happen without considering how it affects everyone around us. Mahapajapati acted from deep intention. I don't have any doubt. She listened from the heart that listened to 500 women. She listened from the heart that listened to the heart of all the monks and nuns across time and space who wanted to take deep vows and live a deep life. What we might call life might be described as myriad beings moving together and supporting each other in ways we can name and ways we do not understand. So life is many beings living interdependently, and everything is constantly changing. This constant change means that all forms of life are constantly responding and adjusting to find balance, because the movement of life is constantly reconfiguring things. Right effort means to be aware of what is happening when it's happening, so that our movement can be appropriate to the situation. When we are not aware and apply too much effort or too little effort, other beings are affected and begin looking for balance. When we are aware, even if we notice gaps in our awareness that brings up compulsiveness or resistance, the very noticing of the gaps is right effort. And the balancing begins right there, beyond our effort. This is right effort. So we sit down on a cushion. We sit down and we stand up. We sit down and we listen deeply. I'm always surprised, pleasantly surprised, when I sit down. One, how much things I didn't even know that I was thinking about. Something will arise not as a thought, but as oh, you hadn't included that in your heart and mind and activity. There's always some balancing act, not always, but often, that arises in my awareness when I sit down. And often some awareness of when I am off balance and I'm causing suffering, be it big or small. Just an awareness of, you pushed a little too hard or held back a little bit too much. You just sit there in the middle of all of it. And it's all swimming and it's all moving. And you don't have to do anything. You just sit there and listen deeply. Buddha's practice challenges us to not know, because everything is always changing, so there is nothing that we can know for certain. We are always stepping into the unknown, whether we are aware of it or not. We tell ourselves that we understand. We create stories to convince ourselves that there is something to know. Then if we don't understand, we believe that somewhere someone exists who does understand, that there must be some explanation. Interesting that when Ananda went to Shakyamuni Buddha, for goodness sakes, and the Buddha gave a response, and Ananda took a breath and said, And he took the next step, and the next step, and so did the Buddha, and so did Mahapajapati. And together, they actually, in that time, came to, through right effort, a response. It's up to all of us, past, present, and future, to keep taking breaths and going, what's the most skillful way forward? What's the way that causes no harm, or if it does, isn't because my ego is pushing it It's because I'm taking a breath and asking deeply each moment, what's the way forward? Sitting quietly in meditation gives us a place to notice and become aware, to rest in the unknown. Right effort emerges directly from awareness and is also the source of awareness. When we just sit on the meditation cushion, we both experience full awareness of what is happening in the moment, and the effort of getting ourselves to the cushion and sitting quietly becomes the source of renewed effort. We live by our effort, but not only by our effort, but we are supported by all beings. Right effort is not something we do, but something we allow to emerge as we step into the unknown, facing our fear, while with each step we confirm the harmony and unity of life. I love the story of Mahapajapati. There's nothing simple about it, except the depth of her resolve and her right effort and her deep intention, as well as Ananda, being completely Ananda. And the Buddha, one has to imagine holding as big a view as he could for everyone in that time. Together they found a way. Together we find a way. And learn to sit in the grief of we don't know. It's not perfect. We're not necessarily going to get exactly what we wanted. And those that we love and have set our hearts on, everything changes. All we can do is help each other show up. So, having said all that, it seems to me there's a good entry into doing the ceremony for Mahapajapati.